This is episode 77 of the 99 Forever podcast. I'm Eric Friesen, and joining me for the 2023-2024 Edmonton Oilers season preview show are three contributors for HeavyHockey.com, Ryan Lotsberg, Bob Schmidt, and Kirk Morris. Guys, how's it going tonight?
Really good,
Doing
Eric.
great.
How's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. Glad to hear that you guys are all doing good too. And, although it was only the preseason, I think we're probably all feeling even better after the Oilers crushed the Calgary Flames 7-2 at Rogers Place last night.
Yeah, it's always nice to see.
Even an exhibition, right?
Yeah, anytime we can demolish the Flames, it's great.
Exactly. I mean, they can say all they want that they sent their B squad up here, but I mean, in reality, the Flames always look like the B squad going up against this Oilers team.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
Well, they keep saying they're going to have their rematch against us in the playoffs, but they have to get there to do that.
Exactly.
And I guess I'll be finding out later tonight if you guys think that they're going to be making it there so that could possibly happen. We're also just 6 days away from the Oilers season opener on October 11th. So guys, let's just dive right into it tonight. After losing to the eventual champions in back-to-back years in the playoffs, that doesn't feel like something the Oilers will accept again. This group is extremely motivated to win the Oilers' sixth Stanley Cup in franchise history and first since 1990. Ryan, is this the most confident you've ever been going into an Oilers season? And what is your biggest reason for optimism?
I would say that, yeah, it is the most confident that I've been about an Oilers team going into a season. I mean, I'm somewhat young. I wasn't there for the 80s years, and this is easily the most optimistic season that we've had since the 80s. Biggest things is that we have a completed top six now. Connor Brown rounds that out nicely. It's a big upgrade over Kyler Yamamoto, in my opinion. And then we've added Mattias Ekholm as well. We get a full season of Mattias Ekholm shutting things down on the back end. And I'm hoping for some a little more stable goaltending. So I think things are on the up and up for the Oil this year. They have legitimate reason to consider themselves contenders or favorites even.
And Bob, how about yourself?
Well, I am probably the senior here on this call, so I do remember the 80s Oilers, but definitely back then it was almost expected just to win the Cup. So you went to every playoffs, and you were just shocked if they didn't. Like, what went wrong?
Well, to rephrase, since their last Cup in 1990, is this the most confident you've been going into a season?
I was extremely confident last year. I mean, the fact we made it to the Final Four the year before that. So I'm as confident this year as it was last year, which kind of scares me a bit because last year was a bit of disappointment for how we finished it. But I do agree that we look like we are a stronger team than we were last year. I'm very encouraged at the player interviews because they all do appear to be on the same page. They all say basically the same kind of philosophy about going into this season. So, yeah, I'm pumped. I'm jacked. Let's do it.
And Kirk?
Yeah, man. I this group of guys here this year's team, I'm totally stoked for. It just like Leo said, they're cup or bust, and I think and they hold themselves accountable. Like they're at least their candor in their preseason interviews. They're like, yeah, we got to get to the playoffs there first. I think McDavid said, and then just take it step by step. But they seem pretty strong in their words. I think that the loss to Vegas really put a sour taste in their mouth, and they know what to do now.
Yeah, and I mean, I think last year after making it to the conference final, we all expected that they were going to take the next step and win the Stanley Cup last year. And really, the Oilers gave Vegas their toughest test in the playoffs. So I think that was as close to the real Stanley Cup final as there was. And whoever would have made it past that series, I think probably would have went on to win, because I don't know about you guys, but I don't think Dallas or Florida would have stopped Edmonton. So it's a shame that they were going into Game 5 tied 2-2 and they dropped those two games. But Ryan, I'll basically echo your thoughts. A full year of Mattias Ekholm, having Connor Brown in the top six, he should be able to score more than they were getting before in that spot. the historic power play. I think that it should still be right at that same level, if not even a little better, with Bouchard being on it for the full season. So I think there's real reason to believe that this is going to be the year that they end their 34-year cup drought. And while this is undoubtedly the deepest Oilers team in the past 30 years, do you think that, or what do you think is their biggest question mark going into the season, Bob?
Well, we do have our, let's see what our bottom six turns out to be, especially with the fight for the last one or two spots. So we look like we got pretty good depth. We had good depth last year, but it looks like we might have taken a step. I'm looking at our, third line D pairing, depending on who it's going to be, is, what kind of season they can put together to provide that kind of stability we need back there. I'm pretty confident in our top four. The biggest question mark, I think, will be goaltending. I mean, I'm very confident in the Jack Campbell 2024 redemption tour. Stuart Skinner has had a full season now, but that means also the scouting report on him is that much more in depth for other teams to make an adjustment. And that's why there's always that possibility of a sophomore slump. So I think the goaltending is where I'm looking at, but I'm still confident who we have back there.
And Kirk, go ahead.
I was just going to chime in. I think our biggest question mark going into the season will be our defensive play on our own end. Just it seemed like they did a hybrid there. They did a mixed zone defense and then man to man here and there. I noticed, but just being more accountable for switching off, if covering each other, and just not be like the old fashioned swarm defense of the Aikens years. Just be accountable. That I think on the defensive side of the puck, offensively, everybody knows it. They're stacked. It's just on the defensive side. That's the biggest question.
Yeah, we've come a long way since Aikens running this team. I'm almost getting PTSD from you saying his name on this preview. And Ryan, what do you think? What is the biggest question mark surrounding the Oilers this year?
I mean, I think some of the guys are nailing it with what's happening on defense, but I'm going to make it a little more specific in saying, how is Philip Broberg going to be deployed and how is he going to evolve this season? I was on record last year saying that I thought he was going to emerge into a top 4D by the end of last season. That didn't happen. This season, the path is a little more crowded. It's a little more cluttered for him. It's like, I'm not sure how he's going to get into the top four, if he's going to get into the top four. There's a chance that he plays with Ekholm at some point because they want to pair the two Swedes together and see if the vet can stabilize the young kid. So I'm just not sure how it's going to work out with Broberg. He didn't look great at the start of camp, but I feel like he's starting to get his feet underneath him a little bit as camp has gone on. He's shown some excellent work in the offensive zone, fantastic edge work, and some really creative and high skill plays that I was expecting to see from Broberg within the last couple of years. So we're starting to see some confidence from him, but how is that going to translate into the regular season, and where does that leave him?
Right, and considering this is now his draft plus 5 year, the Oilers don't have a lot of time for young players to develop into key roles, especially with them hoping to contend for the next year or two. If Broberg shows that he isn't ready for that elevated role by February, could you see him being included in a package to try and upgrade the blue line?
It's a tough decision, to be honest with you. I think it is certainly worth considering, but the cap space is going to be an issue. So, like when you're trading away a kid like Broberg, you're expecting to get a pretty good player back that's more in his prime, and that's going to have a higher cap hit associated.
You'd have to attach another contract with him.
Yeah, you'd have to attach another contract with them. So, and then you might want to replace that, like re-sign that player next season. So, and there's not going to be a lot of cap room next year, like with Connor Brown's performance bonuses on the books already.
It's pretty much going to wipe out the 5% increase in the cap that's going to be applied next season.
Exactly. And Holland hasn't exactly shown a penchant for going after rentals. So I don't.
This
see
might
it
be
happen.
his last season too, though, right? I mean, he's
That's
given
true.
no indication that he's re-signing or that Jeff Jackson would bring him back. So, if this is the swan song for Ken Holland with the Edmonton Oilers, I expect him to fully go for it, and not really worrying about too much about what the team's going to look like a year from now.
Has he really gone? Like has he really? I know. I'm sorry for cutting in there, guys.
No, jump in, of course.
But has he really gone all in, technically, quote unquote, ever?
I think last season, addressing the clear need for a top four defenseman and bringing in Ekholm, I would say that based on the cap constraints that he had, that was the closest to an all-in year for Ken Holland.
Do you think? Sorry, go ahead there, Bob.
Well, having said that, though, that's a good point, though. If he ever has, but let's say this. Let's say this is his last year in the NHL, or especially as a general manager or what have you.
Right.
If there's ever a time for him to be desperate enough to finish with one more cup, this would be the year.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think that he is really concerned about next season. Like you look at that contract he gave Connor Brown, that is not going to impact the Oilers during the final season that he's under contract. That's next year's problem. He might not even be with the organization. So I think that's another reason why he was willing to give Brown that bonus-laden contract that will be applied to next season, which should be, it's going to be $4 million in total, and he's only getting the league minimum this year. So you're looking at about 3.25 on the cap next year. And if the salary cap goes up $4 million, well, that's taking up like 80% of it roughly. So yeah, I don't think that he's really worried about where this team is going to be next year. He's just thinking of winning the Stanley Cup this year. And if the Oilers do win the cup, I mean, that's probably the way that he would want to ride off into the sunset. I can't think of a better way for him to finish up his managerial career.
Yeah, I don't buy it that he's going to leave a hornet's nest there for next year. Just if anything, there he'll get another stay-at-home defenseman, whether it be at a right shot. I would assume it would be a right shot at the trade deadline, just to nail down our defense.
And that kind of leads into what my biggest question mark is. I think the right side of the blue line, Desharnais, I think, is fine in his role as that 6-7 guy. We don't know if Broberg's going to shift over to the right side or not. Bouchard taking a big step forward in the latter half of the season last year definitely is a huge plus for them. But can Cody Ceci bounce back to where he was 2 years ago when he was arguably the Oilers' best all-around defenseman? Last season, he didn't look right all year, and I think Bob Stauffer suggested that he was playing through a lingering injury. So if he can get back to even being close to what he was in his first season in Edmonton, that will help. But I still think that they do need to bring in another right shot defender because the left side is pretty stable at this point. Head coach Jay Woodcroft regularly ran with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen last season instead of the more traditional 12 and 6 alignment. Which do you think we'll see more often from the Oilers this season? And do you think one alignment gives the team a better chance for success than the other, Kirk?
I think off the hop there, he's going to go 12 and 6. Just you get that feeling, but he used 11 and 7 a lot in Bakersfield, and he, the last two, well, 1 year and change there since he's been the head coach, he hasn't been afraid to use 11 and 7. The biggest question everybody's talking about, if you use 11 and 7, you're going to tax out your big guns, and will that catch up to them? Maybe not. Well, maybe they had, in the exit meetings there last year, maybe they, discussed maybe we should, go back to the traditional, 12 and 6, because
doesn't it help out the bottom 6 too, though? Sorry to cut you off, but like giving a shift for a guy like Holloway with one of McDavid or Draisaitl, I mean, that can also give a boost to the bottom 6 guys too, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no question about it. It's just, when is he gonna, I think it'll be game to game. Like that's his calling card. He goes game by game. He says he doesn't
think it'll be more of a 50-50 split.
I
half
would
the time they'll go with 11 and 7.
100%. Yeah, I think he'll do the coin flip, go day by day.
And Ryan, which alignment do you expect the Oilers will go with more often?
I would say that they're going to go with 11-7 more often. A couple of reasons for that. We've seen the utilization that Woodcroft has with McDavid and Draisaitl. They get big minutes. That leaves very few minutes for the bottom six, which, okay, sure, that's all fine. But what 11-7 allows you to do, like it has one less guy that's sitting on the bench for 55 minutes a night, basically. Right, so it allows the full roster to feel more involved. The other reason that there's not a real true fourth line center, whether you're going Matthias Janmark and Derek Ryan, both of which have played fourth line, or both of which have played center in the last 2 preseason games. They've both done it before with varying degrees of success, but none of them are. Neither's a great fit at fourth line center right now. They got Lane Peterson, who's an option and has had a good camp, but he's got 72 games of NHL experience, so it's limited. We're not really sure what we have in Peterson yet. So there's not a real, true, legitimate fourth line center that's solidified. But having Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl double shifting is a pretty damn good fourth line center.
Yeah, and I mean, you could still have Derek Ryan to win the draw because he is good on faceoffs, but actually handling the responsibilities of a center, that's where maybe you could have someone like Janmark shift over, or depending on if they do go with Lane Peterson, Brandon Sutter probably would have been in the mix for that if he hadn't retired. I think it'll depend on the opponent too. Say if there's a team that you think that you can double shift McDavid and Draisaitl against because you're pretty confident that you're going to beat this team and just overpower them offensively, then yeah, go with that alignment. And if you're playing a team that's maybe a little more defensively structured and you know it's going to be more of a grind that night, then go back to the 12 and 6. So we'll see how that kind of plays out throughout the season. And it also, I think, depends on that 12th forward spot that's up for grabs. How impactful is that player? Is it going to be Adam Ernie? Is it going to be Raphael Lavoie? Will one of those guys be able to prove that they should be in the lineup every night over a guy like Vinny Desharnais? It's going to come down to that. Is that forward having a bigger impact than having Desharnais, who can kill penalties? So I think that's kind of a factor that will come into play there too. And Bob, what do you think on this one?
Well, you almost took what I was going to say word for word there. No, that's fantastic. It's good. Great minds must think alike, right?
Definitely.
I was going to say I think a lot of it is going to depend on the opposition. We're going to have varying degrees of success to see which teams it's effective against, more effective against than others. That's going to play a factor. The fact also that right now we don't really have a true fourth line center, as you gentlemen mentioned. That also play a factor. I'm not too worried about this whole time management for our top 2 players. We have the 2 best players in the world on our team. They are in their prime. They're elite athletes in the world. These guys can play 20 to 25 minutes a night, probably, relatively smoothly. I know if a game gets out of hand, you're going to make a play, 16, 17, 18 minutes. And that's fine. If you're up 7-1, we don't need these guys out there the whole time.
Yeah, which they did against teams like Anaheim and San Jose last year. You'd see McDavid and Draisaitl's minutes cut way down.
Right, and that's where you gain that back. But when it comes otherwise, these guys could easily play 70, 72 games a year playing 25 minutes a night.
And just looking at their numbers from last year, McDavid played 22 minutes and 23 seconds a night, and Draisaitl played 21 minutes and 44 seconds a night. But there were a lot of games that, we can remember where they did play upwards of 25 minutes. So if you can get those games in there where you're playing a bit of a easier opponent and you think that you can get the fourth line or the third line a couple extra shifts, that, that will save their bodies down the road.
Yeah, agreed. 100%.
Yeah. All right, and which Oilers player playing in his first season with the team do you think will have the biggest impact this year? Ryan, you can go first.
I have to go with Matthias Ekholm. Just defense is our team's biggest issue. It was a glaring problem last year and it has been for years. And Matthias Ekholm really did a good job of solidifying the blue line group. Goals against came down really far when Ekholm entered the lineup. So I think a full year of Ekholm is just gonna bring that stabilization to the decor for the whole year and really help improve our goals against.
And Bob, who do you have?
How can you not choose Ekholm? The trickle, the ripple effect that he had when he got the lineup, especially with on the decor, like Bouchard's game, obviously he got stepped up. Even a guy like Darnell Nurse all of a sudden felt less pressure on him being the number one guy and not forcing so many plays. He was able to play much more relaxed style and not take as many chances because he had another guy that helped shoulder him the load of those kind of minutes. And the forwards, just the extra confidence you have knowing you have a guy like Ekholm back there, to help you and to move the puck up. Just the confidence we had as soon as Ekholm was inserted in the lineup was like, it was so obvious.
Yeah, and he was only there for the final 19 games of the regular season plus the playoff run. So we're talking about that impact that he had in the final quarter of the season. You stretch that over a full year, the Oilers should be, at least you'd think, in the top half of the best defensive teams in the league instead of in the bottom 10. And Kirk, who's your pick?
Well, I'm going to go against the grain here. Everybody's choosing Ekholm. I'm going to go with Connor Brown. I'm looking forward to a bounce back season from him, recovering from his knee surgery and whatnot there. Looking at him, his play there in the preseason so far, he's just been flying. And I think he was the final piece that was missing for our top six. I miss Yamamoto already, even when he scored there last Friday against us. It was kind of weird seeing him on the other side, but I think everybody will soon forget that you need that keystone. You need that number 6 to have that clutch play, whether it's just one play in a game or that one goal to get you across the line in a tight game, in a really neck and neck situation. I think Connor Brown's gonna prove a lot of people wrong. I know a lot of people are expecting that, but I think he's just gonna shine.
Yeah, I mean, he looked great next to McDavid last night. And they've only played a couple games together since reuniting here, but how much do you think that chemistry carries over from a decade ago when they were teammates with the Erie Otters in the OHL?
Well, you got to give them a little leeway. You got to give them a little bit of runway, to get back, when the games do count. But I think it'll, and I know he'll move around here and there, game to game, it depends on the situation, but overall, I think they'll be awesome. That top line of Kane, McDavid, and then Brown, you got two grinders there, and then you got a guy can, shoot the pill, the best player in the world.
Yeah.
And Connor Brown himself, he can shoot it pretty darn good there too at times.
Yeah, he sure showed it last night. And I do think that the Oilers have the best top 6 in the league, and Connor Brown obviously makes it better. But even if Yamamoto was still here and they didn't bring in Brown, I think their top 6 would still be the best in the NHL. So I'm going to go with what Ryan and Bob said, that Matthias Ekholm will have the biggest difference. They need to cut down the goals against. I believe that Ekholm was only on the ice for 2 even strength goals against in the final quarter of the season that he was with the team. I'll have to double check that, but I remember hearing that stat. And if you can have that for a full year, plus the mentorship that he's providing to Evan Bouchard, when you package all that over the course of a full season, to me, it just sounds like the goals against is going to go way down. And when you consider how much this team can put the puck in the net, obviously scoring 325 goals last year, if that number even comes down a bit to around the 300 mark, maybe they can knock off 25 goals against, and the plus minus will still be pretty even there for the differential. And last season, Stuart Skinner started 48 games in goal for the Oilers, and Jack Campbell started 34. What do you think the split will be for games started this year, and how high is your confidence level in this tandem overall? Bob, start us off.
I wouldn't be surprised if those numbers are exact opposite this time around. I'm I'm a big believer, like I said, in the Jack Campbell redemption tour. When he's on his game, it's just a matter of finding the consistency. But when he's on his game, he's as good as any top 10 goalie in the NHL. Skinner, I think, is going to have a slight step backwards. I kind of think he surprised everybody. He overperformed on what anybody was anticipating. Other teams now have a bigger book on him. He'll take a slight step backwards, but nothing too dramatic. I think he'll still be solid. But do not be surprised if Jack Campbell is the game one starter in the playoffs when that time comes. I'm very confident right now. I'd say we have, in my rankings, I had us as the 11th ranked goaltending tandem right now, but that could easily be top 5 by the time we're 20 games in.
Hey, I mean, if it's close to top 10 in the league, I think we'll take that all day. And Kirk, you understand the goaltending position better than any of us. So what do you think the split will be, and how confident are you in the Skinner-Campbell tandem?
Well, I was just going to go along with what Bob said. Like, I think this year you're going to see a different Jack Campbell. He's already shown it there in the preseason. He seems to be playing with a lot more confidence. He's always had the technical aspect to his game. It's in between his ears. That was the biggest thing. Even when he, left the national team and he made the jump to pros, he always had a confidence issue. And I think he didn't mention it and didn't say anything who he worked with here in the summer, but I'm pretty sure he went back to, I think even Bob mentioned it there in a chat or in a latter podcast that he worked with Dusty Emu there in the past. I wouldn't doubt if he worked with them again this summer.
I thought I heard somewhere that he was working with Manny Legacy. Sorry to cut you off there, Kirk. Okay. He was training with Tristan Jarry and Manny Legacy.
Right. I heard that on, I think it was Kevin Woodley that mentioned that there too, there on Gregor's show. It could have been a myriad of and even talking to like what Woodley said there on Gregor's show there on Monday, like could have worked with a sports psychologist, just to rebuild, start from the ground up and rebuild. I think Campbell will scratch close to 50 games, believe it or not. I think he just has the tools and he can go to distance personally. I think Skinner is going to take a step back, but it won't be like a large step back.
Right. And I'm trying to remember who was saying this. I think it might have been Mike McKenna on Daily Faceoff that Jack Campbell had been using the same upper body armor since junior. Yep. And that he had finally changed his full goaltending equipment. Like, we know he changed pads multiple times last season. And he was using a type of pads that I guess was an older style and was kicking out a lot of extra rebounds. And we remember there were multiple times when he tracked the puck with his glove and it almost seemed like the puck went through the glove basically. So to hear that he kind of has his equipment situation settled, and if you remember, he always looked narrow up top from his goalie. It just, other goalies around the league looked like they covered more of the upper part of the net with their shoulders, and Jack Campbell's really seemed narrow. So I'm just hoping that he has new modern gear. From the sounds like it sounds like he does, and that everything is sorted out there, because it's like you said, if he has the psychology aspect down where he's feeling good about himself going into the year. He had a couple strong preseason games, and even in the playoffs when he came in last season in 4 relief appearances, he looked great in each of those. So I'm hoping that he's feeling good about his game. He's got the equipment situation settled, and everything should be rolling as we get ready to start things off next Wednesday night. And Ryan, what sort of split do you envision for Skinner and Campbell this season?
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything much different than what these guys have already said. I'm thinking high 40s for Campbell and mid 30s for Skinner. Yeah, I think Jack Campbell's going to have his best year as an Oiler this year. Every starting goalie that Dustin Schwartz has worked with, who's in his time in the Oilers, has had their best season with the Oilers in their second year with the team. That's Cam Talbot, that's Mikko Koskinen, that's Mike Smith. All of them, year 2 was their best year, and I'm expecting nothing different from Jack Campbell here.
Eric, you mentioned Jack Campbell's equipment, which is a good point, and
right.
that also affects you mentally. If you have that kind of confidence in your equipment and you feel good about it, it becomes a part of your body, and you're that much more confident in your whole setup.
You hear
True.
experts across the league there. It's unheard of to change out your gear in the middle of the season. Usually you use the off season to test out different equipment. And even Skinner tested out Bauer, I think, this year. And Jack made the full move. He made another gear switch, believe it or not, this summer to a complete Bauer setup, which is pretty crazy.
But Kirk, you can probably speak to this more, but do goaltenders just seem to fall in love with their gear? Because, I mean, for Jack Campbell to be wearing the same upper body protection for 10 years or more, I mean, that thing must have been taped together at this point. You'd think that someone would have encouraged him to get a newer set by, the point where you're a starter in the NHL.
Well, Bob, you can even chime in on this. Like, it's like anything else, even with.
I keep forgetting that Bob also played goalie.
Well, he's
a retired
I'll
goalie now, right? He mentioned that on the last time I had him on the podcast.
Yeah.
I was just going to chime in here, and I'll let Bob take over here too. Like, and I was just going to say, it's like anything else. Like, you fall in love with a piece of equipment or a stick or whatever it is, and you don't want to let it go. With a certain with certain forwards, they like, the flex and, the weight of a stick and all that kind of, it's the same thing with goaltenders. You break in a set of equipment and it just feels like it's a part of you.
Yeah.
It becomes an extension of your body. That's the thing. It's like, I use my stuff way longer than I should. Like, I only switch when it was absolutely mandatory, when it became like a safety issue or the stuff was falling apart. And it's just, it's a part of you. And there's actually a bit of a mourning period when you got to switch over. Like, oh, I can't use this thing again.
There you go. And I've known Kirk as a goalie guy for years, but your literal handle on Twitter is Bob Goalie 1. So forgive me for forgetting that you're also a forward goaltender there, Bob.
There's a lot of teams that I played for that would like to forget that I was their goalie as well.
Well, at least you got a good humor about it now. And who do you think will be the Oilers' most improved player this season, and why? Kirk, go ahead.
I was going to go with Cody Ceci. You talk about Jack Campbell there and what he can do in the net. I think, just tailing off of what you mentioned there before, playing through an injury, and I think in a little addition there, he became a new dad there this last season there too. So he probably didn't get a hell of a lot of sleep, when he was at home, helping out mama there with the baby and whatnot. So a lot of sleepless nights. You dial in with the injury or add on the injuries. Injury roll if you nicked up or whatever. You're not going to play your best.
No, I mean, even speaking of goalies, do you remember Cam Talbot? His wife had twins early in the 2016-17 season, and he talked about it that the first couple weeks after they were born, he felt like his game wasn't up to par because there were a lot of nights where he wasn't getting a full rest. So, that probably could have an impact. And I believe there were 7 Oilers players that became fathers in 2023. So there's a lot of new babies around the team. So let's hope that they can get a little more sleep as those kids get a few months older here going into the season now. And Ryan, who do you have as the Oilers' most improved player this year?
Yeah, I know Jack Campbell's been getting a lot of love and a lot of airtime here, but I'm going Jack Campbell.
Okay.
Because he had his career worst numbers last year, and I'm thinking that there's going to be a big old role reversal there. So I think he's going to be near career best numbers this year. So I think that's going to be the biggest improvement on the team.
And Bob, who do you think will be the Oilers' most improved player?
Connor McDavid. No, I'm just kidding.
He can only go up, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I'm with Ryan. It for me, it's I keep saying it, and I should trademark this hashtag, but it's a Jack Campbell redemption tour this season. Absolutely. It's funny you mentioned that, but the baby thing though. I was going to bring that up when Kirk mentioned Cody Ceci. I was going to bring Cam Talbot up because I do think that was the beginning of the downfall, as cruel as that sounds, when they had twins at home and he just wasn't getting to sleep. So it's more obvious when a goalie doesn't get sleep, I think, because every mistake you make, there's a red light that declares it to the world, whereas the player can kind of hide it a little bit. But yeah, it's a Jack Campbell redemption tour.
There you go. I'm going to kind of go off the board here a little bit. I'm going to pick Dylan Holloway. You look at his stat line last year, 3 goals, 9 points in 51 games. I'm going to assume that he plays the entire year in the NHL. So if he's healthy and he gets a full 82 games, I'd like to see him increase that pace significantly, even if he's on the third line with no power play time. So can he chip in 15 goals? Can he get 35 points? I mean, if he's playing with Ryan McLeod and Warren Fogle, you'd probably like to see him in that 35 to 40 point range. So I think that taking that step up from where his rookie season was, I've got him as the Oilers' most improved player this year.
I'm glad somebody said it.
Well, it's funny you say that. Those are good numbers because when I did my predictions for this coming year, I got Holloway at 15 goals, 42 points.
Oh, okay. So, like, once again, great minds think alike, right? And in past years, I've asked my guests on the show to give their predictions for McDavid and Draisaitl's offensive totals, because those are the ones that Oiler fans talk about the most. But I want to expand it a bit this year. So who do you think will finish top 5 on the Oilers in goals and top 5 in points, and what numbers will they finish with? So, Ryan, you want to give us your lists?
Okay, yeah. I've got McDavid leading the way, obviously. I'm going to put him at 150 points. I'm going to put Draisaitl in second with about 130. Then we're going to see the big old gap. I'm going to put Evander Kane third at 80 points. And then I'm going to go Nuge fourth at 75. Bit of a regression from last year, but still really good. Above his previous career best. And then fifth, I'm going to put Evan Bouchard there. And I've got him at 72 points.
Nice. I like getting Bouch in there. And do you want to just do your goal totals now too?
Yeah, okay. I'm going to put McDavid at 51 goals. I'm putting Draisaitl at 66.
Woo!
Sorry, you said so Draisaitl's leading the team in goals.
Yes.
Okay, and McDavid second. Okay.
Yeah. I'm just going in order of what I haven't written here.
Sure. I like 66. Let's make that happen.
I'm going to Evander Kane to get to 40 goals. Nugent Hopkins with 30, and Bouchard, I'll say 21.
Okay, so you got Bouch in fifth in goals and in points.
Yep, that's what we're sticking with.
And I like that you have Draisaitl breaking Ovechkin's record for most goals in a single season in the salary cap era. So, I mean, Connor took home the high water mark for points last year. So now if and he only came 1 goal short of OV2, but if Draisaitl can get over 65 goals, that would be amazing. Bob, let's go with yours next.
Wow, that's a tough one to follow Lotzi up there. I like his one. I might just want to go with his. So, I do think the Oilers will be looking at our offense will still be the best offense in the NHL, but I do think there'll be more emphasis on our defensive game as well. So I do see some of the numbers coming down a bit. And having said that, though, I got McDavid still winning the Art Ross, but I got him at 133 points. I got Draisaitl sitting second at 109 points. I got Nuge in third. There will be a slight step down, but he'll still be killing it. He's still got power play time, what have you. I still got him at 93 points. And then I got Hyman and Kane identical with 61 points each.
Okay, and your goals
and then
list?
For goals, man, I really wanted to push McDavid to 50, but I got him hovering at 48. I got Drysdale sitting at 41. I got Hyman with a 33-goal campaign. Kane will score 32, and then Nuge will follow up with 25.
All right. And Kirk, who do you have in your top 5 lists?
It's really hard. It's such a crapshoot there with Dry and McDavid. Like, anything could happen with those two. Unlike Bob, I'm thinking that they're gonna even have a bigger year, both of them per se. Well, not so much McDavid. I think McDavid will regress. I know that's hard to say, and everything, but I think with McDavid getting 153 points there last year, I think he's going to push Dry there to get over 150. So I hit the nail on the head there with Drysdale with 150 points, McDavid with 137. Nuge, I think he's going to regress a tiny bit, but I gave him 92 points as a prediction. Connor Brown with 80, and Kane with 78. And with the goals, Draisaitl with 62, McDavid with 52, Kane with 39, Connor Brown with 35, and Zach Hyman with 32.
Well, Kirk, I mean, good predictions around, but I'll say if you think Connor Brown's putting up 80 points, I would encourage you to put some money down on that right now, because I think that you're going to win a lot if that happens. I'm a very optimistic Oilers fan myself, and I mean, we saw a guy like Zach Hyman basically come close to doubling his best offensive season a year ago. But if Connor Brown explodes for 80 points this year, that Oilers offense is going to be incredibly deadly.
Well, I was just going to say, like once again, I'm quoting Bob Stauffer here, paraphrasing him, but it's the Pat Maroon effect.
True.
Like just,
I mean, he was a 13th forward in Anaheim, and they actually retained money on the guy. And then he comes to Edmonton. You put him with 20-year-old Connor McDavid, and Maroon scores 27 goals. So
exactly.
I think about how much more talented Connor Brown is than Patrick Maroon.
Well, that, and they know each other. They played in juniors, so you got to factor that all in. I looked at his stats here. Like, the best year he had was in 1920 with the Ottawa Senators with 43 points. So you gotta multiply it when you're playing with Connor McDavid, because anything can happen.
For sure.
And I change my list to put Connor Brown in the top 5
in goals or points?
In goals.
Yeah, you can change it. What do you got him at?
I think he's going to settle in around 25 goals. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll post what all our numbers were on this podcast in April, and we'll see if we got any of these right. No, chances are in past years, maybe we'll hit on 1 or 2 of these 5 or get remotely close, but it's not the best track record of getting all 5 right.
That's probably an understatement.
Yeah. Well, I even had you on the preview show last year. I'll have to go back and look sometime how we actually did guessing those. I know that I had 140 points for McDavid a year ago, and he ended up finishing with 153. So I'm not going to undersell him again. And I didn't even think I was a year ago. That just shows how incredible McDavid is, that he's able to, even what I thought was putting the benchmark pretty high, just soar past it. So I've got McDavid at 62 goals this year, which would make him the first player to record back-to-back 60-goal seasons since Pavel Bure in 1992-93 and 1993-94. I've got Draisaitl with his 4th 50-goal season, finishing with 57. I think Evander Kane will have a career-high 37 goals. And you'll have Hyman at 35 and Nuge at 32. So still the Oilers finish with 5 30-goal scorers, which would also tie a franchise record that they set back in the 1984-85 season. For points, I'm going to go with 164 for McDavid, which would also make him only the 3rd player in NHL history to hit 160 points. Obviously, Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux being the other two. Draisaitl with 135. Nuge coming down a little bit from 104 last season to 85. Hyman at 82, and I've got Bouchard at 64. So Ryan, you and I both had you had Bouchard in your top 5s, right? Or you dropped him out of goals for Connor Brown.
Yeah.
but I had him at 64, and I think you said 72 points for Bouchard.
That's what I got. Yep.
I mean, basically, we're listing the Oilers' power play as the top 5 in points, right? And I mean,
it makes sense.
To make it to the top 5, you really need to be playing on that power play. There's just going to be so much offense that's created there. I mean, think about how many second assists some of these guys are going to be getting. So the point totals for those guys will be obviously much higher than the rest of the team. But, you know, if you get guys like Connor Brown who are getting it done at even strength, or, I mean, even lower in the lineup, we talked about someone like Holloway taking a step forward. Can Warren Fogle and Ryan McLeod, can these guys up their offensive totals too? So if the point totals do come down the way Bob kind of suggested, they're going to need these guys lower in the lineup to contribute as well. All right, now let's move on. Give me your Pacific Division standings predictions and which teams you think from the Pacific will make the playoffs this year. Bob, you're up first.
Okay. I actually got Dallas winning the division and first.
Dallas is in the Central.
What did I say? Oh, division. Sorry, I went conference. My bad. So I do have the Oilers winning the division.
Okay.
With 118 points, 57 wins. That's where I have them sitting at. And so this is going to be. So I was already ruffling some feathers with my lower point predictions. So let's see what this looks like for the standings. I actually have like a 5-way battle here for second place in the Pacific, with the Kings, Flames, Golden Knights, Kraken, and Canucks. Actually, in that order, I got the Kings sitting at 94 points in second. I got the Flames at third at 94 points. I got the Golden Knights taking basically the last wild card spot at 94 points. I got the Kraken out of the lineup, or out of the playoffs, at 92 points. The Canucks at 90, and then, of course, the Ducks and the Sharks bringing up the rear.
And Bob, you even went a step above and beyond, giving the point totals for the other teams as well. If you don't have that down, guys, for the rest of them, you don't have to, but if you want to chime in with that as well, it's all good. So, Kirk, how do you see the Pacific Division playing out this season?
Well, I have Edmonton winning. Vegas is second. LA third. Believe it or not, I have Vancouver over Seattle, both Seattle and Calgary at fourth. Seattle at fifth. Calgary at sixth. Anaheim seventh, and San Jose dead last.
All right, and Ryan, what does your list look like?
It's not super exciting because it's pretty much the same as last year.
Okay.
Except I have the Oilers winning the division like everyone else does here. I got Vegas in second. I got the Kings in third. I got Seattle in fourth. I just think their team speed and overall depth are going to be a lot for teams just to handle. Calgary fifth, Vancouver sixth, Anaheim seventh, and the Sharks eighth.
And I guess the other thing that we also should touch on too is how many of these teams are going to make the playoffs. Do you think it'll just be 3? Will there be 1 wild card team? Will there be 2 wild card teams? Bob, sorry, did you say how many of them you think are making it to the playoffs?
Well, I do have. I think it's going to be the Flames and the Golden Knights are going to take the last 2 wild card spots, so they would be coming out of that division. Yeah.
Okay, and Kirk, for you?
You know what? I think 5 teams out of the Pacific. The Pacific is loaded. Loaded.
Yeah.
It's the best division in all of the AHL.
There's 2 weak teams right at the bottom, right? But other than that, there's the way that I look at it. There's 3 top end teams in the division, and then 3 sort of middling teams and 2 pretty weak teams. But even the middling teams are all relatively competitive. So. And Ryan, how many playoff teams coming out of the Pacific in your opinion?
I've got a 4-4 split with the Pacific and the Central.
Okay, so you have Seattle coming in with one of the wild card spots, but not the Flames and Canucks.
Correct.
And see, that's what I mentioned off the top of the show about the Flames not getting back in there. They keep saying they want this redemption playoff series, but they got to get in if that's ever going to happen.
Like, there's a chance they can sneak in as a wild card, but I don't. They're not getting into the top three. I don't
How
think they've
sweet would
actually.
that be, though, if the Oilers finished first in the Western Conference and the Flames were the second wild cards seed, and they just stomped them again?
I mean, that would be so fun to watch.
I just expect big bounce backs from like a guy like Huberdeau and Markstrom, two key elements on their team. I expect big bounce backs from them. Mangiapane is gonna have a stronger year. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a Flames booster here at all, but I just see a pretty good sized bounce
Did
back
they
coming.
get? I mean, I know that they got rid of Daryl Sutter, and that should just help them by subtraction. But they also traded away Tyler Toffoli for Sarangovic, I think his name is. So they
Sharangovich, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so is it, Ryan, is it fair to say the Flames got worse in the offseason?
I think that is totally fair to say. Like, I think you're right. Addition by subtraction by getting rid of Sutter. Ryan Huska, by all accounts, fantastic player's coach, but he's going to be an NHL rookie himself. The Flames 93 points last year, and they would have barely snuck it. Like, they were the 16th overall team in the league, if I remember correctly. Florida was a point below them and went on to the Cup Finals. But there's a 7-point gap between them and the Kraken from last year. It's like, I don't think
everything went right for Seattle too, though, right? I mean, are they going to have that many guys that are all going to have career highs again?
Exactly. You had Vince Dunn and Jared McCann doing things they had never done before. Can they keep that consistency?
Plus, Sprong's gone now, right? So they lost that 20-goal scorer on their third line. Their goaltending is subpar at best, probably.
Yep.
I mean, so I still think that Seattle could get into the playoffs in that fourth seed, but the Flames and Canucks probably have a chance to push them. I mean, I still have Seattle getting in over them, but I'm just saying that it's not a lock that Seattle has that fourth spot down.
I mean, they can contend, sure. I just think that there's a lot of, I don't know, JT Miller and the Canucks. I think there's some locker room issues in there. Like, I'm just not a fan of that deal. I don't know why they prioritized signing him over Bo Horvat.
I know.
That was really stupid.
Their captain, who is loyal to the organization for
that they drafted and developed.
Yeah.
Right.
I see a very strong 5-team battle there. Kings, Flames, Knights, Kraken, Canucks. That's going to be a heated rivalry all season long to get those playoff spots.
People forget about Thatcher Demko, and I made a prediction on Michael's show there last year that he would win the Vezina. Didn't know about his groin issues there, and he shredded. He was out for 32 games last year. This year, I'm going to sound like a broken record. He's going to win the Vezina. Look out.
Okay, and I'll go for my Pacific Division predictions. And I'll say the Oilers in first with 112 points. Vegas with 107, the Kings at 101, Seattle at 93, the Canucks at 89, Flames 85, the Ducks 62, and the Sharks coming up the rear with 59. So yeah, there's going to be a couple, pretty weak teams, like I said, near the bottom that the Oilers will beat up on, and the teams in the middle, I think it's still rivalry games against Vancouver and Calgary, so those should be intense, but the Oilers really should get the better of both those teams. And they had a great record against the Pacific Division last season, so that trend should continue. Just before we move on, though, from the Pacific, I want to get an additional thought from you on why you think the Oilers will be able to finish ahead of the Golden Knights and Kings this year. Is it just this team continuing to take a step forward, or is it more so the other teams maybe coming down a little bit? We'll go back to you, Bob, since you were first. What do you see for these teams?
Well, I do see the Knights and the Kraken taking a step backwards, but I also see the Flames stepping up and the Kings kind of holding what they're doing. I definitely think it's more about the evolving of the Edmonton Oilers. You're going to see them be better defensively. They're already trying different stuff defensively in the preseason, and they'll be implementing. They should be better at locking down games in tight third periods. So I think it's more a focus of the Oilers evolving, taking that next step, becoming a better all-round team, more of a championship caliber team, and not just relying on our number one offense and the best power play in the history of the sport.
Yeah, and Kirk, for you, Do you think that Vegas and LA have taken a step back at all? Or do you think that the Oilers will just overcome them and this is the year that they're finally going to win that first division title in more than 3 decades?
Well, you look down the stretch there last year, like right before the end of the season, Vegas and Edmonton were neck and neck.
Right.
And I think
if Vegas would have lost that last game of the regular season, Edmonton would have finished first.
Yep.
That's how tight it was.
I think the Vegas's goaltending. I know Aiden Hill was on a heater last year and propelled them to the Stanley Cup. He was brought in. I think the main theme here for all the teams, well, I should say for all the teams, but you take a look at Vegas, you take a look at LA, you even take a look at Edmonton a little bit there too. There's not really a number one. You do see Aiden Hill, of course. He's probably going to be the starter, but Logan Thompson there, like he can go on a heater there too. It can go back and forth. With LA, they lost all their goaltending. They traded away Jonathan Quick. He didn't come back. They signed Cam Talbot, an aging Cam Talbot, and they've got Phoenix Copley, who has been a career backup. You take a look at Calgary there with Markstrom. You take a look at Vancouver with Demko. It's gonna be tight again. I think. I know it. Kind of contradicting myself here, but it could be a coin flip, and once again between Edmonton and Vegas, or it could be Vancouver, surprising a lot of people there too, and that's why I picked them fourth there in my rankings.
And Ryan, taking a look at the top 3 teams in the Pacific, all 3 of these teams have been mentioned as potential Stanley Cup contenders. Obviously, Vegas is the defending champ, so they're almost automatically thrown into that. But when you look at these 3 teams and their off season, do you think each of these teams got better? Did some of them get worse? How would you look at these 3 taking a step from last year into this season?
I think Vegas is pretty close to the same group they were last year, so reasonable to expect similar results. The Kings, I feel like, got a little bit worse, but
Agreed.
They're still a dangerous team. Like, I'm not a fan of that Dubois deal long term, but in the short term, their top 9 is still pretty loaded. But the Oilers,
they sent out more goals than they brought in, though. That's kind of the point that I was getting at. That yes, yeah. Everyone looks at that they got the best player in the trade, but one of the things that made the Kings so effective against the Oilers in the playoffs was that gritty, greasy third line of theirs that is basically all playing for the Winnipeg Jets now.
Yeah, that's totally fair, but like they can still put Philip Deneau on that third line.
Yeah.
And they had, I was watching the Kings and Coyotes from Australia in the preseason, and they were running Arvidsson and Deneau on the third line. So like they can still boast a little bit of depth and come up with a very useful third line. But for me, the Oilers, with Connor Brown, with Matthias Ekholm there for a full season, with an expected rebound from Jack Campbell, expected internal improvement from guys like Dylan Holloway, Ryan McLeod, et cetera, I think that we have a really good chance to win the division. Last year, I look back at November and December last year. How many games did we just give? We gave them away. Like Darnell Nurse giving the puck away in his own end with seconds left, losing overtime. Like, how many games were we like, Jack Campbell blew us that game because of his sloppy glove hand? Like, we only needed one of those to go our way for us to win the division last year. Now, I think it's going to be a lot more stable with Ekholm, with an improved Campbell, with the new defensive systems. So I don't think we have that crazy November, December lull this year. So I think we end up with a few more wins under our belt for the season total and run away with the division.
True. And I mean, the Oilers, like you said, did have a really rough December and first half of January. And although the Boston Bruins set the NHL record for the best regular season in league history last year, the Oilers were better than the Bruins in the second half of the season. They only had 5 regulation losses in their last 39 games. So that just shows you the level that they played at to overcome where they were at on January 1st to get to a point where they weren't even in a wild card spot in early January, and to finish 2 points out of first place in the Western Conference. So they were playing out of this world from January on. And if they can play even remotely close to that for the full season, then they're going to be in the mix for not only just a division title, but a conference title again. All right. Sorry, did you want to say something?
Yeah. I was just going to chime in. I know for the Oilers last year, their first half of the season, they traveled a ton. They had tougher competition. Yeah. I'm just curious, like to everybody here in the chat on the podcast. I mean, has anybody checked out the schedule and seen if it's similar to last year?
They play 8 of their first 12 games are against non-playoff teams.
Okay.
So that should help. And you are right, Kirk. I do believe that I'm trying to remember who put it out. I wish I could credit the person, whether it was Jonathan Willis or Daniel Nugent-Bowman from The Athletic. I feel like it was one of them that said the Oilers had the second toughest schedule in the league in the first half and the third easiest schedule in the league in the second half. So, right. I mean, it should balance out regardless either way, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm just hoping this year we have a little bit easier travel, kind of more spread out, so you get a little bit more.
They do have road games. There are a lot of road games early, but like I said, when you're playing, I mean, just off the top of my head, their first 4 is back-to-back with Vancouver, Nashville, and Philadelphia. I mean, right. I don't think it's overconfident to say that the Oilers should start 4-0 there, right?
Yeah, no, it's all about having a good start though too, right? It kind of sets the tone for the entire year. So
exactly, and even
road trips early on aren't necessarily that bad because that's you do a lot of good team bonding on the road. I mean, you guys spend all that time together, so. But yeah,
especially when you're winning.
Especially when you're winning. Yeah.
And knowing that Leon Draisaitl is the mayor of Nashville and that they're playing their third game of the season there, I mean, that's a pretty good way to start off the season.
They should build a statue of him there outside the stadium.
He had some ridiculous record run where he had something like 6 straight multi-goal games against the Predators, or I have to go look it up, but his numbers against that team are insane. So I'm kind of glad that the Oilers are playing them early because that should get Draisaitl off to a hot start this season. All right. Last season, McDavid tied the NHL record for most individual awards in one season with 4, including the Art Ross Trophy as scoring champion, the Maurice Rocket Richard Trophy as goal-scoring leader, the Hart Memorial Trophy as most valuable player, and the Ted Lindsay Award as most outstanding player as voted by the NHLPA. Stuart Skinner was also the runner-up for the Calder Memorial Trophy as Rookie of the Year, and Darnell Nurse was a finalist for the King Clancy Memorial Trophy as Best Leader and Humanitarian in his community. Which Oilers players do you think will take home some hardware this season, Kirk?
I think Draisaitl is going to take home the Rocket. I think McDavid is going to take home the Ted Lindsay.
I mean, with 66 goals, that should secure it.
Oh, for sure. And I one of my bold predictions, I wrote down here, and I'm kind of, after the point totals there everybody was talking about, I don't think it's going to be too far off. With Carlson last year, being offensive and whatnot, I wrote down Bouchard and it would be a Norris finalist. Yeah. Believe it or not.
He definitely could. I mean, if he has an incredible point total year where he's, let's say top 3 in the league, I wonder if they'll look at the full package, because not that Bouchard is poor defensively, but are they going to want to see a more full, well-rounded defenseman for that trophy? Although it does seem
they never do.
I was going to say in past years, you're right. It has been. They've almost treated the Norris in a sense like the Art Ross for defensemen. Although back in the 80s, it wasn't that way because Paul Coffey should have had it every single year, and he's losing it to guys like Rob Langway and just going for the most defensive complete player instead of the guy who's putting up 135 points as a blue liner. So Yeah, is he going to score more than Cale Makar to get into the mix? Like, will Carlson be able to have close to a similar year playing with Crosby and Malkin? To be determined, but I like that prediction that you're going with, that Bouchard being in the mix for the Norris.
Doesn't hurt being on the best power play in the world, quarterbacking it, and I think, like I said, once again, call me crazy, but I think he'll actually, if he plays with Darnell Nurse, I think he'll be that calming effect for Darnell Nurse, where he tends to do everything. I think he'll have that calming effect there with Darnell, and I think they'll be a great pairing. Personally.
Well, if he's playing with Darnell Nurse, who else do you think he's playing with? Connor and Leon.
Yeah.
Who's the best puck mover on the team? It's Evan Bouchard. Who do you want him on the ice with? Your superstars, right?
And you got Darnell Nurse, the best skating defenseman on the team too. So they might actually blend well together because each other's strengths aren't, they would just kind of fit each other's weaknesses and cover for each other in that sense, I guess.
They do, but like Cody Ceci had more time with Connor and Leon than Bouchard did last year.
Yeah.
And Bouchard still got 43 points.
Yeah, I mean, he had a really slow start, but then he finished the season on an incredible run with 19 points in his last 19 games, and then he was even above a point per game in the playoffs when the Oilers' power play was clicking at an even better rate than it was during the regular season.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I have Bouchard at 72 points, and it could even be low.
And Ryan, we'll go to you next. Can they just start engraving McDavid's name on all the same awards this year, or do you see anyone else on the Oilers adding to their trophy case?
I mean, McDavid's certainly going to be in the mix, if not winning a few of those at the very least. I just said Leon's going to get 66 goals, so I think that wins the Rocket for him.
Yeah.
I have a hard time saying anybody other than McDavid's going to win the Hart or the Ted Lindsay. Like, he is the best player in the world, period. And I love Leon, but there's nobody even close to Connor. So those ones for sure. But I think Jay Woodcroft could win Coach of the Year.
Nice. I was hoping that someone would toss that in there as a potential award for the Oilers staff. And Bob, who do you think will be hearing their name called at the NHL Awards next June?
Oh my goodness. Well, obviously it's just going to be the Connor McDavid night. They might as well just call it that instead of the NHL Awards. And so he'll clean up. He could win any award he chooses besides the Vezina and the Norris. So if he puts his mind to it, that could happen.
I had Michael on the show a couple weeks ago, and he suggested that someone should tell Connor that no one's ever won the Selke and the Art Ross in the same year as a motivating factor for him to try and win for best defensive forward in the league.
Well, the closest ever was 1994. Sergei Fedorov finished second in point and won the Selke. So only 3 guys have ever won the Selke and scored over 100 points. So I wouldn't put it past McDavid to even try and tackle that one, especially since I already mentioned the fact that all the guys are going to be focusing a lot on their defensive game as well.
Yeah.
And Woodcroft repeatedly always mentions how McDavid might even be their best defensive forward overall. So he has
the ability to backtrack and steal pucks like that. I mean, that's a defensive skill in its own. I think some people look at the more traditional, how does he set up in his own end and where is his placement and taking pucks away in that respect. But like I said, just because of his incredible speed, he's not only able to, create off the rush, but he can get back. And there's been times where it looks like a player might have a breakaway and he just basically comes out of nowhere, catches the guy and strips him from the puck. So definitely want to see more of that coming this year. And I guess the other thing that Michael and I talked about a couple episodes ago was that McDavid has won the last 3 Art Ross trophies. Would it surprise any of you guys if he wins the next 3 as well?
No. Wouldn't surprise me at all. He's still in his prime window. He could win the next 5.
Because the thing is, if he gets 2 more, that puts him at 7. And at that point, he would pass Gordie Howe and Mario Lemieux, who each have 6. And the only player standing in front of him is Wayne Gretzky with 10. So you look at him right now, he's 26 years old. He has 5 Art Ross trophies. Could he lead the league in scoring 5 more times to tie Gretzky?
100%.
Yeah, absolutely, he could.
Because you have to. I'm trying to think about the contenders, right? I don't know if there's a player right now in the next like at least 3 years who could come close. You see some guys on the rise, like Jack Hughes is coming up the ranks. I mean, where is Bedard going to be 3 to 5 years from now? But I still believe that until McDavid is at least in his 30s, that he should basically own that trophy every year that he's healthy.
Yeah, those other guys you're talking about are cute, but they're not Connor.
Oh, of course not. I'm just because they're younger. Eventually, like basically, how long can he stay at the top? Because right now, if he's at 150 points. Let's say 5 years from now, he's a 120-point player. Will if someone came and passed him by then? But by that time, maybe he already has either come close or equaled Gretzky's mark for most Art Ross trophies.
I mean, look at it this year. Like, there wasn't anybody within 25 points of Connor. Right?
No,
like,
I mean, Draisaitl was finished second, and he was 27 points behind him.
And then who was the next guy behind Leon?
That would have been Kucherov. So Connor had 153, and Leon had 128. And then the next guy, I think they were tied. It was Kucherov and Pasternak each had 113. So Leon was even 15
40
points.
Yeah.
Like
40 so points difference.
Connor's 40 points clear of anyone who doesn't play on the same team as him.
Yeah, exactly. It's his to lose for the foreseeable future.
And the gap between first and second this year was the biggest in the scoring race since Wayne Gretzky in 1991. So we're talking about the most dominant season. Like, he lapped the field unlike any player in the past 32 years. You know, even Mario Lemieux, who was putting up even greater numbers than McDavid was in the mid 90s, still wasn't that far ahead. He had guys like Yager who were only like 10 points behind him. The rate of where McDavid is beyond every other superstar in the league right now, it's just like he's in another stratosphere.
Well, I attempted to capture that in an article I wrote there for Heavy Hockey Network to establish exactly how dominant he might be. And yeah, like you're mentioning him in the names like Gretzky and Lemieux and, you know, Gordie Howe and these guys. You're already mentioning them.
I think Connor's the third best forward ever after those. I already think 8 years into his career, I'll say it. I think he's the third best forward to ever play the game behind 99 and 66.
You can make an argument that he's if he's not already one of the greatest. Well, he is one of the greatest, but I would say that he is the most skilled player that has ever been in the NHL. Nobody's had these tools, this complete package, as Connor McDavid has.
Yeah, most advanced, most evolved, whatever you want to say. To have the combination of vision, puck skills, passing, shooting, speed. Yeah, it's on another level. Every skill he has is at an elite level.
Yeah, elite's an understatement.
Yeah.
So I've got McDavid obviously winning the same 4 awards that he had last year, but I'm also going to add one in. He will be the first player to ever win 5 awards in one season, and that 5th award that he'll be adding this season is the Conn Smythe Trophy.
Nice.
as playoff MVP. That will be the, and then he'll have a record that even Gretzky never accomplished. So that's kind of a little bit of a preview for one of my takes later on in the show here. So we're going to go into our bold prediction segment now, and I've asked you guys to each prepare 3 predictions for the Oilers this season. It can be a prediction for the team, an individual player, multiple players, or even coaching and management. So I want to go around the table one at a time. Ryan, what is your first bold prediction for the Oilers this season?
Which one do I want to give you guys first?
Are you going to save your best one for last? Or are you just going to give it to us right off the start?
I got to keep you guys in suspense here. I'll save the best one for last here.
Because I think Bob likes his dessert before his veggies, so he wants that right now.
Well, Bob's going to have to wait. I'm going to say. I'll start off by saying that we kind of got one out of the bag earlier. I was going to say Leon set the salary cap era for single season goals with 66, but instead I'm going to start off with Jack Campbell finishes above a 920 save percentage, which puts
above
him top
920.
That's a spicy one.
Wow. Oh, I love it. I freaking love it.
Elite goaltending from Jack Campbell. I mean, sign me up. I think we would all accept above league average goaltending from Jack Campbell. So, and I do think he will rebound. But if he comes in with 920, then I'm pretty confident that the Oilers are going to go as far as I'll tell you guys in a little bit. And Bob, over to you.
Well, am I the one who's going to do the elephant in the room? I don't know if it's bold, but Oilers win the cup this year.
Okay, well. I was going to ask you a little bit about that later, but I think we're all basically thinking the same thing, so that's a good one to start with.
Somebody's got to say it.
Yeah. And Kirk, what do you have for us?
I'm going off the board here. I'm going to say three Condors are going to make their NHL debut this year. Oliver Rodrigue.
Their NHL debut?
NHL debut.
Okay.
They'll Olivier Rodrigue. Raphael Lavoie is a shoo-in, I think, at some point if he doesn't get traded. And Xavier Bourgault gets a call up.
I like that prediction. That's a creative one, especially throwing in Rodrigue into the mix there.
I love it.
I just have that gut feeling, he's going to get that one AHL game like Skinner did there when he first started. And I think he'll get his homework, whether it'll be in November or whether it be in January. I just have that gut feeling that he's going to get a call up and he's going to get a start.
Okay. And Ryan, back to you.
Okay. My second one here. I'm going to say that Evan Bouchard will lead all NHL defensemen in power play points. Maybe not super spicy, nice. Maybe not reaching too far for that one, but there it is.
I think that there's a good chance that he'll achieve that one. So that's a solid prediction there, especially like you said. I mean, he has the opportunity that no other defenseman in the NHL does, and that's to play on the power play with McDavid and Draisaitl.
And Tyson Barrie did that last year, and he was not leading the league in power play points by defensemen. He got 3 more in Nashville, and that put him at 31, which is, I believe, 4th. What I got the list here.
Tyson Barrie did lead the league in points by defenseman 3 years ago, though.
Right.
And became the first defenseman in NHL history to lead the league in points by defenseman and not receive 1 vote for the Norris.
Yeah, I know. Right.
I mean, hopefully, if he does finish where you think he will, that would include a few Norris votes for him there.
Yep, hopefully.
And Bob, what's your second one?
Well, geez, you guys are giving it all away, and I'm gonna stay on the Bouchard train here. I do think that Evan Bouchard is gonna make a case for him to be considered one of the top 10 D-men in the whole league, and he will definitely be getting Norris consideration. I'm not saying he's gonna be a finalist, but he will definitely be getting Norris votes this year.
Okay, I like that. So there's basically like a contingent here of people who are thinking that Bouchard's going to be moving up into the elite class of defensemen around the league. And if that does happen, that $3.9 million cap hit's going to look really good. But there's going to be a very big payday coming in the summer of 2025 if that's the case. And Kirk, back to you.
Another off the board prediction here. I'm going with Ben Gleason will be a full-time NHL D-man by January.
Woo.
Nice. Ooh. I mean, he has been one of the standout performers of the preseason so far. Yeah. So, hopefully if the Oilers do send him down to Bakersfield, which I think will obviously be coming, that he won't get picked up on waivers and that they'll have the at least option to bring him back if there's an injury.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a trade to make that happen, if that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't rule that out either, though.
And Ryan, oh sorry, go ahead. Kirk.
I was just going to chime in there. I think he'll be, if he gets demoted to Bakersfield, I don't know, like he'll and if he does pass through waiver, I don't know if he's waiver exempt. I'm pretty sure he's not. But he was going to say, if he does shake the foundations there on the farm, don't be surprised if Brett Kulak, kind of gets. That's just my take on it. It seems like Brett Kulak seems to be like the third left shot D-man on the team here right now. I don't know. I just have that gut feeling. It's either up to Brett Kulak or even Philip Broberg. Just I don't know. I don't know. I just have that gut feeling again.
Okay, and Ryan, you've been building up to this, so I'm hoping it's a really good one here. What is your final?
I'm hungry, Ryan.
What's your final prediction for the Oilers this season?
All right, let's get Bob his dessert here.
Yeah.
Right. The Edmonton Oilers. Yes, the Edmonton Oilers you all know and love will be a top 5 defensive team in the entire league.
Wow.
And I'm saying that because partly because of Jack Campbell's resurgence and partly because of the new systems that Jay Woodcroft has implemented.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. I wanted to quickly pull up here who the top 5 defensive teams in the league were last season, just so that we can take a look.
Here.
Oh, do you have it?
One, Eric. Yeah. So number 1 was Boston.
5.
Do you want this presented as goals against or goals against per game?
I mean, because all teams have played 82 games, it's even now. So we'll just go, goals against.
Goals against. Boston was the class of the league at 174 goals against. Like, they were just ridiculous. You got Carolina in second with 210. Dallas in third with 215. The Rangers in fourth with 216. And the Islanders, there's something going on in the water in New York, but 217 goals against. And for reference, the Oilers, is that where you're going, Eric?
Well, no, I mean, you look at those 5 teams, and one thing that is common with a lot of them is they have an elite NHL goalie. So that is obviously a big feather in their cap and makes a major difference. So if Jack Campbell gets to that 920 level that you're thinking that he might, then they would have a shot at it. But you said they were all under 220, right?
Yeah, they're all under 220. So
doing some quick math here, 220 divided by 82. So that's like 268 if they allowed 220 goals. So if the Oilers are allowing 2.68 goals per game, they are going to win a lot of hockey games this year. I mean,
absolutely.
This is a team that averages over 4 goals a game. So if that's the case, then we're talking about pushing 60 wins, as crazy as that sounds. So I hope that your prediction does come true, because for that type of stingy defense added to the best offensive team in the league, then Bob's prediction of a cup win seems like it has even a little more credence than we thought.
Absolutely. And for last year, just for the record, last year the Oilers were at 256 goals against, good for 17th in the league. So they're shaving 40 goals off. It's half a goal a game.
Yeah.
It's doable.
Well, I believe out of all the Western teams that made the playoffs, they allowed the most goals against. Is that not correct?
That's going to involve more work than I can do on the spot, but probably I wouldn't be surprised. The Kings, Kraken, Vegas, Winnipeg, Colorado, Minnesota, Dallas. There's not who else is below them here. Yep, that's accurate.
Yeah.
Okay. And Bob, your last one.
Well, I love that one because I actually kind of figured this wasn't one of my topics though, but I kind of figured the Oilers would crack the top 10 and to be the best defensive team. So top 5 is bold, and I strongly encourage it. And I already have them pushing 60 wins. I got them at 57 wins for my predictions for this coming season. So That should get us 60. Then my last one is kind of a fun one.
Okay.
I do think that number 3.
I hope all of yours are fun ones.
I think Leon Draisaitl this year is going to get his first NHL fight.
Oh,
that is a good prediction. That's one that I wouldn't have even thought of. So, yeah, I mean, he's a fiery guy out there, and it makes you think that one of these times someone's just going to piss him off a little too much, and he'll drop the gloves.
Now, who does he fight though? Is it Alex Pietrangelo? Is it Mikey Anderson?
Yeah.
Well, the willing combatants are out there, but he has that edge to him, and he does cross the line sometimes with some of his hacks in the back of the leg and stuff like that. And I think somebody's going to end up jumping him, and he'll have to defend himself somehow, and the gloves are going to drop, and we'll see what they do.
I do like Ryan's idea of him getting a few shots in on Pietrangelo. That sounds nice. So I'm gonna.
I don't care who does it, as long as someone does it.
Yeah, if it does, I'm gonna have to get Michael to clip that and post that 30-second clip on Twitter, because you'll definitely deserve to get credit for that one. And Kirk, what's your final prediction for the Oilers this season?
Another crazy prediction here, even with the farm team once again. I think the Condors and the Edmonton Oilers are in their respective leagues are going to make it to the final. Not going to win, but both the Condors and the Oilers are going to make it to their respective league finals.
Okay, that's another creative one. So I like that you were able to integrate a few Condors predictions in with this too.
Yeah, I follow Ryan Holt, I think, is the play-by-play, like the social media guy. He's all wrapped in one there for the Condors. I follow him online. I follow Bruce Kurlock and a few others from the Bakersfield area that talk a lot about the prospects there. So I'm going to keep a very close eye, and hopefully, even if one, like even my first one comes true, I'll be super stoked.
There you go.
No Fort Wayne Comets predictions there?
I haven't got that far down the ladder yet there, Bob, but I'm working on it.
Okay.
Who do you see landing on their fourth line?
Landing on their fourth line.
Yeah,
fourth line.
Yeah, let's break down the ECHL fourth line and who could really add some grit.
I was going to say, I'll break down the goaltending there. They've got a former London Knight there, Brett Brochu. I think he's playing for him there. You got an ECHL contract, so
okay,
good on the kid. But
I mean, you know one name on the Comets, so we'll give you credit right there. Ryan Fanti,
automatically our expert.
Yeah.
Ryan Fanti got a goalie goal.
Yeah, he did, and he had a fight.
Yes, sir.
There you go. All right, so that covers our ECHL segment of the Oilers season preview. And so anyone who follows me on Twitter knows I'm a big stats guy, and especially a McDavid stats guy. So all of my predictions are McDavid related. I have him finishing with 2 points per game this season, 164 points in 82 games, which would make him only the third player in NHL history to average 2 points over a full season. The other, of course, are Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux. I also have McDavid registering 100 assists this season. It's only ever been done by 3 players. Gretzky did it 11 times, and Bobby Orr and Mario Lemieux each did it once. So Connor would be joining a very exclusive club there of players who have had 100 apples in one season. And this is my biggest one. I believe that McDavid, en route to winning that Conn Smythe trophy that I mentioned earlier, will put up 50 points in the playoffs this year.
Oh my goodness.
Nice.
Which would break Wayne Gretzky's record for most points in a single playoff year of 47. And I mean, if you think about it, Gretzky would have had a lot more than 47 points if the 85 Oilers weren't so dominant. Yeah. If there was a few more series that had gone 6 or 7 games, then he probably would have got close to 60. But because I don't think this year's Edmonton Oilers will roll over their opponents as quickly as the Oilers did back in their heyday in the mid 80s, let's just say that each series goes 6 games on average. And he's maintaining that point per game average that he's had the past couple years of, just under 1.9 points per game. If it's 1.89 times 24 games in the playoffs, he should be at minimum in that 45, 46 range. But I think that he'll even elevate as the playoffs go on and get over the 50-point plateau. So that's my big one to keep an eye on once we get into the playoffs next spring.
Love it.
I like it. I'm on board. That's ballsy. I like it.
Yes, sir.
All right. And we kind of already touched on this, but we'll just go over it one last time. So because I don't know if everyone gave all their predictions for this, but how many wins and points do you think the Oilers will finish with? Bob, you said, I'm trying to remember.
57 wins,
yeah.
118 points.
118 points. And Kirk, you're next.
53 wins, 111 points for the Oilers.
And based on the type of defense that Ryan's thinking that this team will have, I'm guessing yours might even be higher. So how many wins and points are you projecting this season?
Oh, what do I want to say here? I'll go 56 wins, 115 points.
Okay.
Not many overtime games.
Yeah, I have them winning 55 games and 2 overtime losses because I just think that they're going to be such a hard time to beat, or a team to beat in 3-on-3 overtime. So 55 wins, 2 overtime losses comes out to 112 points, which should be enough to finish first in the Pacific Division and also hopefully the Western Conference. All right, and my final question for you guys tonight, and some people have already kind of given away their answer here, but we'll still go over it. How far do you think the Oilers will go in the 2024 playoffs? Which team will they play in their last series, and how many games will it go? Bob, make the call.
Edmonton Oilers were going to win the Stanley Cup this year. Put it on the board, and I should be placing bets on this. I do think our Eastern Conference team finalist is going to surprise some people who I feel, but I do think with a little less pressure on them as there was last year, I think Boston might actually make it that far, and we'll have a repeat of the 88 series.
And the 90 series.
And the 90 series, that's correct, yeah.
Despite losing Bergeron and Krejci too, so that's I don't know how many people have the Bruins going to the final this year. I think there would have been a lot of hockey observers and experts who would have had them reaching that point last season before they were ultimately knocked out in a shocking upset to the Florida Panthers. So, and you said
Bergeron's presence there, he set the tone for that dressing room. So there's no way that his presence still isn't felt there. Marchand's gonna take the reins there. He's basically Bergeron's best friend. You see DeBrus taking a step forward. You see Charlie McAvoy taking a step forward. They have the best goaltending tandem in the league. Ullmark's not going to be as dominant as he was last year, but Swayman could be a number one on so many other teams as well. And they're going to have less pressure on them because less is expected of them without the Bergeron and Krejci there. So I see them as sneaking in there.
And how many games did you say it'll take the Oilers to knock off the Bruins?
I didn't say. But
okay.
Let's go with, you know what? Let's make it a 7-game series. Why not?
Okay. And Ryan, how far do you see the Oilers going? Who will they play in the end and how many games?
I also have the Oilers in the Stanley Cup final. However, I love my team. That's why I can't pick them to win.
You don't want to jinx them. Is that what you're saying?
I don't want to jinx them. I can't do it.
So you think you're actually increasing their odds by picking against them?
I don't want it to be my fault.
We'll forgive you.
No, I'm going to say
you produce a ton of content for the site, so you're forgiven.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Brian.
Sorry?
How much power and influence do you think you have that you're going to control the Stanley Cup final?
Oh, every move matters. Every move matters, Bob.
He's got to walk to work the same way every day. On game days, he eats the same thing.
Always wear my blue and orange on game day.
Yeah. You can't break this. I mean, hockey's a very superstitious sport. So, okay, so who are they playing in the final and how many games will it go?
I've got them playing somewhat of a surprise team in the East, but a team that's done a little bit to load up here. That's got very strong defense, especially on the right side. So a lot of speed, and they've added some goal scoring in the summer. The New Jersey Devils. And I think they'll beat us in 6 games.
Interesting. And, I was just listening to Greg Wyshynski, a.k.a. Puck Daddy, on Dustin Nielsen's show yesterday. And, I mean, he's a huge New Jersey Devils fan and noted Oilers hater. And he has the Oilers winning the Cup this year. He picked them last year, and he's picking them again this year over his own Devils. So that also, not that I read too much into everything Wyshynski said, because he also said at one point last year that David Pastrnak was the best player in the NHL. But the fact that he's picking the Oilers over his own Devils, maybe he's trying to do the exact same thing you are, is like jinx the opposition or something. But I like to see that there's multiple experts in the industry coming out. We've seen guys like Elliot Friedman suggest that this is going to be the year. Frank Saravelli, like there's enough there's enough notable media people outside of Edmonton who are making this prediction that it's not just a local prognostication that the Oilers are going to be the ones to lift the cup. It seems to be that they are universally considered Stanley Cup contenders.
That's what scares me.
That there's too many people picking them.
Exactly. The consensus favorite rarely wins it all.
Yeah. But don't you also think that first time that McDavid and Draisaitl get into the final, that they're not going to let it slip away?
My heart wants to say yes. My brain wants to say yes. I just can't do it.
I just feel like you put McDavid in that situation, playing for the Stanley Cup, something he's been dreaming of his whole life, a player that's that driven. I just can't see him losing the first time he finally gets there.
They would be the favorite in any Stanley Cup final. But like I say, I just can't do it.
And I mean, The Athletic put out their predictions earlier today. They had Carolina winning the President's Trophy, I believe, with 109 points, and they had the Oilers finishing second with 107, and they also had that as their Stanley Cup final. So, I mean, love to see that. And Bob, last word goes to you. How far are the Oilers going? I guess you've already said it, but who are they playing and how many games?
No, I already did it. It's Kirk's turn there. I started it off.
Oh, sorry. Kirk. Yes, last word goes to you. My apologies.
It's all good, man. It's all good. I'm once again, I'm going way off the board. Call me crazy, whatever. It probably won't happen because I think Gary Bettman would go full scanners. His head would explode on live TV. But I'm going to go with an Edmonton-Toronto final with Edmonton winning. I'm going to go 7 games. I want an all-Canadian final. It'll probably never happen.
That's the one Canadian final that I think would be great for the NHL, because the Leafs are such a big draw across Canada, as much as we might dislike them. And the Oilers have Connor McDavid. I think that there would still be enough appeal south of the border. But the numbers, I mean, Sportsnet would be, doing jumping jacks and high-fiving in the, behind the scenes if that ever happened, because I mean, they would be making money hand over fist. I can only imagine how much they'd be charging for commercials during the Stanley Cup final if it was the Oilers and Leafs.
Like I said, call me crazy, have the tinfoil hat conspiracy going, but I don't think Bettman would be too happy, and I would just be I would be doing cartwheels if it was an all Canadian final.
And you had the Oilers over them, right?
Yeah, 7 games.
In 7 games.
I guarantee you that when or if the Toronto Maple Leafs ever win another Stanley Cup, automatically most of the media is going to already declare them one of the greatest teams of all time.
Especially with Austin Matthews, being on there.
I mean, in their 106-year history, they have won 13 Stanley Cups, but all of those Stanley Cups were only 2 rounds in the original 6 era. So they've never won 3 rounds in any playoff series. The Florida Panthers have won 3 playoff rounds twice in their history, and the Toronto Maple Leafs haven't. Just to put into perspective, like how putrid the Leafs have been over the past or half century.
You could have used that as one of your hot takes there, Kirk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just just one of those out in left fields, just predictions, I guess.
There you go.
I just got a second helping of dessert, I guess.
There you go.
Yeah, Bob's got the sweet tooth. My Stanley. Well, I have Edmonton obviously winning the Stanley Cup as well. I think they're going to play the Carolina Hurricanes, rematch of the 2006 final that broke Oil Country's heart. And unlike that series in 06, this time it'll end with a happy ending. The right team lifting that cup, something that was denied to this team 17 years ago, and it still hurts. So it would take away some of the pain of not getting to see Ryan Smith and that group that scratched and clawed their way into the playoffs and went on that Cinderella run, just coming up short. To see Connor McDavid and the current edition of the Oilers finally win it, bring the cup back to Canada for the first time in 30 years, the cup back to Edmonton for the first time in 34 years, it would just be a beautiful thing. And I'm predicting that they'll beat the Hurricanes in 6 games. So it'll be on home ice too.
I'll be a very broke man if that happens.
Would you get tickets to the Stanley Cup final to see a home game at Rogers Place?
Oh, I would be very tempted, but I have a feeling that it wouldn't be feasible.
I'm definitely planning to go to more playoff games this spring, but probably in the first round or two to think about what a ticket might cost for Edmonton, the Stanley Cup final. I mean, I'll definitely look on Ticketmaster just out of curiosity.
Oh, of course.
I'd definitely be in the moss pit, though. That'd be nuts.
Yeah. I mean, even to go to a first round game, the tickets were, or my ticket was, more than double of what I normally pay. So for my usual area that I sit in. So to think that what it could be like for a Stanley Cup final, I'm thinking upper deck would be $700, maybe $800, just as a throwing a dart there, but I have no idea. It would definitely cost a lot. Yeah,
I'd say higher.
You think?
I'd say higher.
Even for upper deck, hey?
Yep.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough. I got to go to Game 3 in 06 for the final, and at the old Rexall place.
Right.
But I tell you what, that's an atmosphere that you never come down from.
No, and I mean they came back and won that game too. So I'm glad you went to one of the finals games that they were victorious. So yeah, let's hope that we get there and that gives us another 9 months to save up a little money to maybe go to those games. Get Michael to put it on the company credit card and take all the heavy hockey guys.
How many articles I'm going to have to write?
Yeah, but knowing you, I think that you would promise to write an article every day for the whole summer if he got you a ticket to the final.
I mean, I could probably think of a lot worse things that I would do too.
Well, we'll save that for another episode, maybe. But guys, obviously, it's really exciting that the season is just around the corner here. I mean, we obviously have huge expectations for the team, and I know that internally they have even bigger expectations for themselves. So I'm sure we all just can't wait to get it going for real on Wednesday night. And I want to thank you guys again for being on the show. So before we call it a night, everyone could just tell the listeners where they can find you on Twitter, where they can follow you.
Yeah, Cam Rates 1 at Cam Rates 1 on Twitter for me, and just check out heavyhockey.com. I am working on some articles. I'm doing I guess it's like a power ranking / organizational rankings here. Hopefully we'll be out before the season starts next week.
Okay. And Ryan, where can they find you?
Yeah, so the handle on Twitter is at LotsRyan. My username on there is Lotsy. And you guys know I pump out the content, and this frequency will probably slow down a little bit once the regular season starts, but I'm still good for lots of written content on heavyhockey.com.
Oh, absolutely. No one writes more articles for the site than you. And Bob, where can they find you?
Goalie Bob 1 on Twitter, and obviously on the 97 Octane Hockey podcast. We've had all three of you gents on as guests before, and I always enjoy talking hockey with the likes of you guys. So thanks a lot for having me on here, Eric.
Definitely, and I'm sure I'll have each of you on at some point again this season, possibly even multiple times. Once again, thanks again, guys, and let's get it started. Almost time for hockey season.
Let's go.
Yes, sir. Thanks again, Eric. Appreciate it, man, as always.
Yeah, thanks, Eric.
For sure. All right, so for Ryan Lotsberg, Bob Schmidt, and Kirk Morris, I'm Eric Friesen. This has been the 99 Forever podcast. We're out.